The station drifted in the shadow of a dying star, its hull scorched with centuries of heat and rust. Lights flickered, some broken, some dimmed to save power. The Grand Bazaar, as locals mockingly called it, was a riot of scent, sound, and species. Thousands of lifeforms bartered and bickered over polished tech, dehydrated meats, genetically modified flora, and black market weaponry. Among them, something worse than a thief or slaver moved something with purpose. Korzar, of the Variks, stalked through the crowd with methodical grace, each step calculated, each breath a calibration of the air's taste and threat. The predator stood tall over most of the crowd, his reptilian bulk cloaked in shimmering veil-field armor. Organic optics swiveled independently of his gaze, mapping movement, posture, temperature. He wasn't here for trade. He was here for prey. The rite of ascension demanded a final hunta-sapient kill that could challenge him, something that resisted. This bazaar, with its transient traffic of smugglers, diplomats, mercs, and desperate colonists, was fertile ground. Weak prey bled fear. He could smell it, trace it. His species had mastered the hunt millennia ago. His fathers had broken the spines of warlords. His uncles had chased cryoserpents across the glaciers of Zarnax Prime. But none had hunted in this sector. None had taken a human. He scanned the crowd. A group of lectals scuttled out of his path, mandibles trembling. A methane breather turned translucent, its sacs quivering. A security drone rerouted itself without explanation. Korzar's sensors whispered a symphony of cowardice. And then it stopped. The humans stood still, not hiding, not looking away. Just standing, arms relaxed, head upright. Watching him like a wolf might study a fire. Male. Late 30s, by Terran metrics. Short dark beard, scar on the temple, lean build beneath a rugged coat, stained with engine oil and what smelled like iron-based blood. Korzar's ocular feed flicked over him. Dominic Vance. No active bounties. No guild affiliations. Former military files, mostly redacted. He was utterly calm. That's what made Korzar slow his approach. Every other species leaked tension, terror, even rage. This one, nothing. His heartbeat was slow. Skin temperature regulated. No sign of fear. Hormones the predator inched forward, letting his veil shimmer with an intentional glitch enough to let the human know something was watching. Still, the man didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly as if observing something mildly interesting. Like a strange bird or an old wound. Korzar extended one talon, deliberately dragging it across a steel railing as he passed. Sparks jumped. Sound pierced. The crowd, no reaction. He activated an ancient hunting protocol. His chest armor reshaped slightly, releasing a harmonic pulse deep. Bone-rattling frequency designed to trigger unease in any vertebrate species. Several nearby traders clutched their heads. A squid-like child began wailing. Dominic blinked. Just once. Korzar was not used to this. Resistance, yes. Desperation, occasionally. But this was absence. The man's presence did not submit, nor resist. It watched. Like a thing that didn't care if it was prey or not. He took another step forward. The human didn't move. Korzar's secondary weapon system, ping threat detection. The system had flagged the man's right hand, half concealed beneath. The coat, potential weapon. Blade, maybe. Firearm, unlikely, no visible heat signature. But the software couldn't identify the posture as hostile either. It read as casual readiness. His fingers twitched, not out of fear, but reflex. Once, long ago, a rival clan elder had told him, the most dangerous thing in any jungle is the one that doesn't run. At the time, Korzar had dismissed it as primitive poetry. Now he wasn't so sure. The crowd seemed to pulse around them, instinctively giving both space. The human hadn't spoken, hadn't moved, but there was a ripple of discomfort flowing out from him. Not fear. Recognition. Others were picking up on it too, even if they didn't understand it. And Apex was standing still. And it wasn't the VAREXX. Corzar's predatory mind raced, now unsure of the target he had selected. Had he misjudged? No. This was a human. Flesh and bone. Fragile compared to him. Slower, heavier gravity, native. But something in the way this one breathed it was wrong. He activated his pulse scan again. Heartbeat remained unchanged. Gaze locked. Breath steady. But now the human smiled. Not wide. Not friendly. Just a flick of the lip that suggested understanding. And the willingness to indulge what came next. A strange emotion, unfamiliar and unwelcome, crept into Corzar's chest. Not fear, not quite, but its cousin, quiescent deep and primal, like the way his ancestors once looked at the ocean and realized something was watching from beneath. His talons retracted slowly. He disengaged the harmonic pulse, deactivated the scan. Then, without a sound, he took a half-step back. The man didn't follow, didn't chase the advantage. Just held the smile a second longer before letting it fade. Corzar turned away first. He hated how good it felt too. Be out of that gaze as he disappeared into the crowd, cloaking field re-engaged. One thought stalked him now. That wasn't prey. That was a challenge, and it had already sized him up. He wasn't sure if he was still hunting, or if he'd just been marked. Dominic Vance leaned against the rusted edge of a vendor stall long after the predator disappeared into the crowd. His eyes lingered on the space it had occupied, committing the shape, the movement, the hesitation to memory. His left hand slipped back into his coat, fingers brushing the polished hilt of the combat knife sheathed under his ribs. Old habit, not from fear, but from muscle memory. Centuries of human evolution whispered that sometimes the best response to a predator was the promise of a deeper bite. The bazaar stirred back to its noisy rhythm. Barkers shouted prices in mismatched tongues, and smell-slick alleys trembled under the weight of foot traffic. Life moved on quickly here. But not for Dominic. He'd seen the eyes behind that shimmer cloak. That wasn't a mugger or a gang enforcer. That was a hunter. Not one of those idiots who bought fake licenses and hunted pre-approved targets on the open colonies. This one had the stillness of a killer with no leash. Its scans had licked at him, reading biosigns, aggression markers, probably even muscle fiber tension. It hadn't expected what it found. That amused him. He pulled a nicotine tab from a pouch and bit it clean, flavorless but warm. A pulse of mild stimulation flicked through his nervous system, grounding him. He glanced around. No signs of pursuit, no drones overhead. Still, his spine itched. The thing had backed off, but not out of weakness. It had retreated like something trying to reassess a puzzle that suddenly changed shape mid-solution. He walked now, slow, deliberate. The human gait had power in its shoulders. Loose arms relaxed, head steady. Most aliens slithered or skittered or floated. Humans moved like they expected a fight. Dominic moved like he welcomed one. His boots echoed down the metallic alley, away from the light-choked main square. He didn't trust it. Too many places to be watched. He needed a quiet wall and 10 seconds to think. Halfway down the corridor, he leaned into a support beam, just out of the camera arc. Closed his eyes. The Varex, he knew the name. Not well, but well enough. Apex species. Trophy hunters. Ritualistic, arrogant, and dangerous. Rumors said they'd wiped out their closest rival species during some ancient rite of dominance evolved. Predators with no concept of compromise. Not pirates. Not assassins. Predators, designed by biology and culture to seek out the strongest prey and tear it down. So what the hell was it doing here? More importantly, why had it picked him and then hesitated? He tapped into the local machinist through his neural implant, running a low-profile query. Nothing overt. Just local traffic patterns, motion logs, crowd density. He didn't want to trip any alarms, but he needed to know if he was being followed. Nothing concrete. Still, there was a hole in the data. A moment of static in the bazaar feeds. Right around the time he'd been scanned, someone had tampered with the sensors. He clicked his teeth together. That wasn't the act of a random predator. That was prep work. A ritual hunt, maybe. Or worse, something personal. The VAR-EXX didn't pick targets by chance. Thea selected. His jaw clenched. He wasn't used to being selected. He'd spent years erasing himself after the military pulled out of the Ember Fields. They'd left bodies, silence, and a dozen operatives behind. Dominic survived. Others didn't. The brass had called them assets, disposable. So he'd become a ghost flying small jobs under false IDs, never staying long, never drawing heat. And still, the past had sniffed him out. He checked his sidearm, compact shock driver, almost untraceable, good for 2 shots before it overheated. Useless against a full-blooded Varix in armor. But it might slow one down. Might. But that wasn't the plan. He'd learned in the fields that when someone stronger comes at you, you don't try to match their strength. You give them doubt. That moment of pause, of calculation, that's where humans thrived. 1 step ahead in chaos. 1 second faster when it mattered. He was counting on that again. Still, there was something else. A nagging detail he couldn't ignore. The way that creature had looked at him like it had expected something. Recognized something. As if the hunt wasn't about food or trophy. It felt like a test, and he wasn't sure who was grading. Footsteps approached from behind. Dominic's fingers brushed the knife again, subtle. He didn't turn around immediately. Let the sound play. Out. 3 steps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. He turned. A local blue-skinned, tusked, carrying a crate of fungi glanced at him, startled. Then shuffled away with muttered apologies. Harmless. But now Dominic was sure. He was being watched. He stepped out of the alley, back into the electric chaos of the bazaar. Eyes flicked to every reflective surface, every drone hover. It wouldn't come at him again today. No, not yet. That kind of predator watched from the trees a long time before it struck. It would test him, corner him. He just needed to be ready. When it did, he slipped into the crowd, vanishing like smoke. Every step a calculation. Every breath steady. He wasn't running. He was waiting. The hunt wasn't over. But maybe, just maybe, a tear. The hunter had picked the wrong species. Corzar knelt in silence beneath the thermal exhaust grates of Docking Bay 17. The heat rolling over his armored frame like desert wind. The shadows here were thick, distorted by steam and the throb of nearby engines. His mandibles clicked in thought, not agitation. For the first time in 2 standard cycles. He was not certain of his place on the food chain. The human had unsettled him not through strength, not even through aggression, but by offering nothing. No readable reaction, no pulse of fear to feed. On it was like standing in front of a closed door and realizing too late that something behind it had already heard you breathing. He hated the memory of that. Smile. In the predator's culture, a hunt was not about slaughter. It was ritual, a dance of dominance and worthy opposition. Killing something that did not resist was wasteful. But this one had not resisted either, had simply stood there. And in doing so, disrupted something primal inside him. He activated. His retinal feed, reliving the brief encounter. He froze the frame on the human's face. that faint, unreadable grin. The way his eyes hadn't tracked like prey, but had measured. Corzar zoomed in, analyzed the facial cues, ran it through. 3 behavior analysis algorithms. All came back uncertain. He growled, low in his throat. Dominic. Vance, human male, ex-military. Retired or exiled reports conflicted. No known affiliations. Nomadic behavior pattern, often changes ports. Never stays long enough to form local ties. No known kin. He was smoke in records and a shadow in patterns. The kind of man one didn't find unless he allowed himself to be found. And yet here he was, Corzar Rose, bracing one clawed hand against the steel wall. His mission remained. He would not return to the Brood Fleet until the rite was fulfilled. His clan expected proof. His name demanded it. But if the prey chose to become more than prey, then so be it. The rules of the rite allowed for escalation. He returned to his makeshift nest beneath the grates, where his cloaked gear was stored. From a sealed container, he retrieved a thin vial. The liquid inside shimmered with opalescent Ripple's Varex blood serum, laced with neural combat enhancers. It sharpened instinct, slowed perception of time, enhanced visual acuity, and micro-muscle control. It also came with a cost once taken. The predator could not back down. The hunt became a covenant. He inserted the vial into his secondary bloodstream. Poured and inhaled sharply as it took effect. No more hesitation, the human would fall. But not in the market. Not in the open. No Corzar would draw him out, push him. Study him like prey that didn't know it was hunted until the moment. It finally broke. He moved into the underbelly of the bazaar where sanitation pipes twisted like intestines and light never reached. His claws worked quickly, setting up a gravitic snare visible high tension, designed to trigger when specific mass ratios pass through. He laid down resonance beacons to disrupt tracking tech and sprayed neural gas nodules across the walls. Harmless to Varex physiology. Devastating to soft lungs. Then he waited. Hours passed. He did not move. And then the hairline trip sensor pinged. He rose, but when he stepped forward, nothing happened. No snap of the grav snare. No hiss of gas deployment. Only silence. He glanced down. The snare had been cleanly severed. He whirled too. Late, a hand pressed against the back of his neck. Cold, firm. Thought I'd find you down here. The voice was low, steady. Corzar twisted, but the human had already stepped back, just out of strike range. No weapon drawn, no fear in his eyes, just that same calm presence. Like a man who'd already imagined every possible way the conversation could have and accepted them all. I know this trick, Dominic said, glancing at the gas nodules lining the walls. We used to do something similar on Andros Station. Only we used noise bombs instead of nerve gas. Corzar straightened to his full height, towering over him. You disarmed my hunt. Dominic nodded. Yeah. Because you're not the first apex I've dealt with. Corzar flexed his claws. You insult the right. No, Dominic said. I'm answering it. He stepped closer. You chose me because you thought I was prey. I get it. You needed someone to challenge you. Someone to push back. But here's the thing, you're not hunting some spineless merchant. You're hunting a human. He tapped his temple. You ever wonder why your kind doesn't make trophies out of us? Why we don't hang on your walls? It's not because you haven't tried. It's because the moment you do, you realize what you're dealing with. Corzar said nothing. His heart beat like war drums behind his chest plate. We fight when we shouldn't. Dominic went on. We win fights we weren't built to survive. And when we lose, we learn. Then we come back smarter, meaner, and pissed off. He gestured to the broken snare. You want to hunt? You've got one. But don't expect it to go the way you planned. Korzar tilted his head. "Why not attack now?" he asked. "You have advantage?" Dominic smiled, not the soft kind from before, but something older, more dangerous. "Because you're not ready yet. You're still thinking I'm your kill. You don't even realize that I've already started mine." He turned, back exposed, and walked away. Korzar didn't move, not for a long time, and when he finally did, he realized that for the first time in his long career, he wasn't chasing prey. He was being led. The storm finally broke above the outer hangar levels. Wind from the station's failing pressure systems howling through shattered bulkheads. Dust and sparks danced together in the dark. Dominic stood alone beneath a flickering floodlight, boots planted on groaning steel. He'd chosen the location carefully open space, limited entry points, and a clear line of fire in all directions. But he wasn't here for gunplay. Not yet. A low hum vibrated through the floor, the kind that wasn't tied to any system the station controlled. It moved like thought through metal, like a predator announcing its arrival without words. Dominic didn't turn when he heard the footsteps. He waited. He'd learned long ago that the first move wasn't always the most important sometimes. It was the second that mattered more. "You could have run," Korzar said from the darkness. His voice came not as sound, but as a layered pulse, slow, resonant, with that guttural click that always seemed to precede violence. Most do. Dominic exhaled through his nose. "I've done enough running." Korzar emerged, cloaking field dissipating like mist peeled away by wind. He was fully armored, no ritual spikes gleaming, skin painted in blood patterns signifying readiness for the final hunt. The serum still pulsed through his system. Dominic could see it in the slight shimmer of his veins, the unnatural tension in his stride. "I have honored your defiance," Korzar said, circling wide. "You could have died silently. You chose to resist. That makes you something more." Dominic's eyes never left him. "I'm not here for your respect. I'm here because you wouldn't walk away." Korzar paused. His claws twitched once. "You would deny me what I've earned." Dominic took a step forward. "You haven't earned anything yet. You don't get to ascend by picking a fight with something you don't understand." Korzar lunged. He didn't roar. He didn't need to. His movement was a blur of mass and precision, claws aimed directly for Dominic's throat. But the human was already moving, ducking low and pivoting with a motion too smooth for someone his size. A blade flashed, not his firearm, not a high-tech weapon, but the knife. Small and ugly and familiar, the edge scraped across Korzar's wrist plating, throwing sparks. The strike didn't wound, but it broke rhythm. Dominic pressed forward, not to kill, but to unbalance. He wasn't trying to win by force. He was trying to win by choice. They clashed again, steel against claw, movement against momentum. Dominic fought like a man used to losing first rounds and winning with endurance. His strikes weren't elegant, but they were layered feints within feints, timed reactions meant to force a response, not just land a blow. Korzar was stronger, faster, but Dominic was loud in his silence, projecting something ancient and dangerous. There was no fear in his body, no yield in his steps, and that threw everything off. "You hesitate," Dominic said, voice level even as sweat beaded across his brow. "I calculate," Korzar snarled, slashing wide. The blade missed by inches, carving sparks from the bulkhead behind them. "You're not used to that," Dominic said, ducking under another strike. "You're used to fear giving you rhythm. But I'm not afraid. I'm just watching." Korzar roared and drove forward, knocking Dominic off his feet. The human rolled, shoulder first, gritting his teeth as he slammed against a pillar. Pain shot through his side, but he didn't break focus. He came up in a crouch, blade reversed in hand. The predator advanced, but slower now. "You speak as if this is choice," Korzar said, panting. This is nature. This strong ascend. The worthy fall. Dominic stood again. That's your mistake. You think strength is measured by who stands last. We measure it by who chooses when to stop. Korzar paused, the claws half raised. No one's stopping you from killing me, Dominic said. But if you do, what will that make you? A predator who struck a man who never ran. Or a warrior who recognized something he didn't expect. Korzar's breathing slowed. The venom in his blood still begged for the kill, but something else began to push through the part of him that had chosen to stalk this human in the first place. The part that wanted to understand, not just defeat. I came for prey, Korzar said. I found something else. Dominic lowered the blade slightly. So what now? A long silence passed between them. The wind through the broken hull whistled around them like the breath of some forgotten god. Then Korzar did the unthinkable. He dropped his weapons, his claws retracted. His armor shifted into a lower configuration, ceremonial non-lethal. He reached into a compartment along his chestplate and retrieved a small orb etched with the symbols of his clan. He tossed it to Dominic, who caught it one-handed. What is this? Dominic asked, turning it in his fingers. An end, Korzar said. And a beginning. Dominic stared at him, reading the posture. The fight was over, not by surrender, but by something far rarer. Recognition without another word. Korzar turned and began to walk away, not in shame, not in retreat, but in resolution. He would report that the right had been fulfilled, that the target had been claimed. And in a way, it had. Dominic stood alone again, beneath the flickering light orb in hand. He looked at it for a long time, then slipped it into his coat and turned toward the docks. Behind him, the wind howled louder. Ahead of him, silence waited. But within him, something had shifted. To not fear, not pride, but the knowledge that even monsters knew when to stop hunting. And sometimes, that was the moment they became more than what they were. He didn't smile this time. He didn't need to.